What's good, everyone? It's your boy Onur65, and welcome to the first episode of Mastering Tilu 2's No Return Game Mode on Grounded difficulty. For this episode, we're going to talk about encounter types and how to play these encounter types as efficiently and as good as possible. I'm going to be talking about what you have to look out for and what you have to consider doing. And yeah, let's get straight into it. Alright, what you want to do when you are on Assault Against Humans, especially in the beginning, you really want to try and stun every single enemy once, and then you want to try and go for a headshot, okay? You want to maximize your points that you get on a kill, because stunning an enemy gives you 5 points, and then finishing off with a melee kill, for example, gives you another 5 points. But headshotting them also gives you 5 points, right? So technically speaking, if you stun each enemy, let's say in the first encounter, right, which is Assault Humans, you have 3 enemies per wave, you have 3 waves, meaning you have 9 enemies in total, right? If you stun and headshot each enemy, you get 45 points extra for stun and 45 points extra for headshots, meaning you will have 90 extra points at the end of the encounter when you are finishing it. And on top of that, because you finished every single enemy off with a headshot, you will get 30 extra points. So not only are you going to get 90 extra points, in total you're going to have 120 extra points because of headshotting every single enemy. And that is really the optimal way to deal with these encounters. If you have a gambit going on that requires you to melee kill an enemy, you can go for the gambit as well. That will give you 10 extra points, and then you might lose out on 20 points. But I usually always, for maximum points, I usually always go for a stun and a headshot on the enemies, and then hopefully get the 30 points at the end extra as well, especially in the beginning. If the first 2 encounters are Assault Against Humans, try and go for the headshot only approach when also stunning everybody. But the later you are into the run, the more difficult and the more dangerous the human encounters become. So when you are late into a run, you should prioritize surviving. With Assault Against Infected, on the other hand, no matter where you are in the run, you will always be able to maximize the points out as much as possible, meaning that if it's the first encounter of the run or the last encounter before the boss fight, no matter where you are, you will always be able to stun each individual infected enemy and headshot them. That is because the infected in this game are a lot easier to deal with. They are one-dimensional, they will always run towards you, and they are trying to melee you. You don't have a ranged melee, you don't have a ranged infected enemy, and therefore you don't have a problem to deal with these guys at all. So no matter where you are, you can always go for a quick leg shot and then a quick headshot without any problems. You don't technically, if you're being overwhelmed by the amount of infected, if you are later into the run, you can just go for headshots as well. And remember, when you headshot a clicker for the first time without damaging it prior to that, it will count as a stun, and then you can follow that up with another headshot. And if you do that, obviously you're going to get points, a lot of extra points for stuns, you're going to get a lot of extra points for headshots, and then again, you're going to get 30 extra points for landing nothing but headshots. If for some reason maybe you just missed a shot and killed someone with a body shot, maybe you had no other choice than to melee because your gun ran out, at least try to finish the gambit so you can get 10 extra points instead. Now, capture encounters are actually very simple and straightforward. You have a couple of enemies spawning around a safe and they are guarding that safe. Your goal is to kill all these enemies and capture the safe. You have 2 minutes to capture the safe. You can capture the safe while stealthing through the encounter. Technically speaking, you can even open it before killing everyone. But at the end of the day, to finish the encounter, you have to kill every enemy. When you manage to capture the safe, you will get 50 extra points for capturing the safe, and you will get extra resources as in currency, pills, and crafting materials for your weapons. Because these enemies spawn around the safe and are guarding that safe, you will always have one enemy directly at the safe. So if one enemy is left, you will always have him around the safe 100%. And because they are spawning around the safe, they will also never start in combat, meaning that you are able to maximize the potential of your equipment each and every single time you enter a capture encounter. And because of that, you really want to try and do these encounters without any guns. When you finish it without firing a single bullet in that encounter, you will get another 50 additional points. And if you're lucky enough and you are able to kill every single enemy without being spotted once, you will get another extra 50 points. So technically speaking, whenever you enter this type of encounter, you are able to get 150 extra points. And depending on the multiplayer you are having on that encounter, those 150 extra points can be really big. Hunted encounters are very straightforward. You have an enemy type, may it be infected or humans, and these will spawn in over time and they will hunt you. That's literally what the name is, and it's very straightforward. Now with human enemies on grounded difficulty, these enemies are extremely ruthless and they will punish you for literally anything you do. So what you want to do on hunted against human enemies is you really want to try and stay a bit more passive. You want to build yourself up a little bit of a defense, and you want to stay in cover throughout the whole encounter and try and simply only kill the enemies that are approaching you from behind cover using pipe bombs, for example, using a melee weapon in combination with a brick throw or a bottle throw, for example. Because technically speaking, in a hunted encounter, and that's only tied to a hunted encounter, if you kill an enemy, like simply killing an enemy, you will get 10 extra points. That is the purpose, or like the point of a hunted encounter. And to get as many points in those encounters, you need to get as many kills as you can. But against human encounters, you can't be ruthless and run out there guns blazing, trying to get as many kills as possible. You are literally gonna die trying to do that. You will have to play a bit more passive, which will lead to you not being able to get that many points. But the amount of points you're losing because of using this strategy, you are making it up by not using any guns and getting that 50 extra points at the end. So in these type of encounters, like I said, you really need to prioritize surviving. You can't run out there guns blazing because you will die. And if we are being honest, a dead run is worse than a run where you have, I don't know, 50 points less maybe. So try and survive, don't die, and just play passive in these type of encounters. Now obviously if you have the experience, you can move around a little bit more, play around the bottles around you, the melee weapons around you that you can pick up, or the melee weapon you have picked up. Play around your equipment as much as you are confident enough and have the experience. But generally speaking, you do want to take a more passive approach, take an approach where you don't use any guns, and make up the points you lose for not getting that many kills. And yeah, just stay safe basically. Now, the hunted infected, on the other hand, compared to hunted humans, is the complete opposite. With the hunted human encounter, you have to play really passive and prioritize surviving. But with the hunted infected encounter, you don't have to prioritize surviving. You have to prioritize really popping off and getting as many kills as possible. As I mentioned earlier before, a kill in a hunted encounter will give you 10 extra points. So you should really try and get as many kills as possible against these infected. On top of that, you should also try to get as many stuns as possible, as many headshots as possible, melee kills, because all these things will still, like with any other encounter, will give you an additional 5 points. So technically speaking, you can get 20 points per kill, meaning 10 points for the kill itself, 5 points for a stun, and then 5 points for a headshot or a melee kill or whatever it is, right? So you can technically get 20 points per kill. That's a lot of extra points. If you play these encounters perfectly, you are able to rack up 700 to 900 points without any modifiers applied. So these encounters are really the bread and butter of high scores and trying to get PBs. What you have to look out for though is when you are playing as a character, like for example Dina, for example Mel, they start out with a revolver and you are not able to stun an infected with a revolver by shooting them in their leg. If you try and do that, what will happen is you will just decapitate them, and the decapitation does not count as a stun. So when you play as Mel, for example, or Dina, don't really try and go for stuns with their revolver. Just try and go for headshots. Or what you can also do is go for a body shot into a melee kill, because the revolver does enough damage for you to be able to finish off the infected with your melee attacks. And what you also want to prioritize when you see that on the board that you have a lot of infected hunted encounters coming up, you really want to prioritize grabbing a shotgun on your way, because with the shotgun you have a very nice emergency weapon for if you are in a bad spot. You can get yourself out of that bad spot really well. And on top of that, you have the ability to one-shot most of the enemies, and you have the ability to get multi-kills, which also really helps with getting, first of all, getting rid of some enemies and getting more kills, meaning more points. What you also have to watch out for is that you are killing the enemies at a very fast rate, depending on how late you are into the run. If it's the beginning of the run, the enemies will spawn one by one in a little bit of a slower rate. But if you are late into the run, you will have 2 enemies spawning at once, depending on the enemy type. You will have 2 enemies spawning at once, they will spawn at a fast rate, and you can only have a maximum of 4 or 5 enemies at the same time on the map in a hunted encounter. So you really want to make sure that you are killing these enemies at a fast rate, so that the spawn rate just keeps going, because you don't want the spawn timer to be stuck on 5 enemies without spawning additional enemies, right? To maximize the points you are getting. So the hunted infected encounter, like I said, is the bread and butter of high scores, and you really have to be aggressive on these encounters to get as many points as possible. Holdout encounters are unique encounters tied to the infected, where you are in an area that, depending on RNG, can be very closed off, where the enemies only have one way to approach you, or they are extremely open and the enemies can approach you from all the sides. You have to protect your ally, and you have to prioritize protecting your ally, because the damage your ally takes costs you more points than the damage you yourself take. Meaning, for example, if your ally takes 50 damage throughout the encounter, you are going to lose 50 points. But if you take 50 damage throughout that encounter, you are going to lose 25 points. That conversion rate goes for every encounter, but the conversion rate regarding your allies' health only goes for the holdout encounters and is unique to that encounter type. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of RNG going on in those encounters with how the encounters are built, meaning some entrances are going to be closed off or blocked off with some stuff, or they are just going to be completely open. So that is RNG. And another RNG factor in that encounter is a bloater spawning in or not. I don't really specifically know if there are some things that lead to the bloater spawning or if it's just completely random, but all I know is sometimes there is going to be a bloater. And depending on how far you are into the run, you have to deal with, I think, around 20 to 40 enemies. In this encounter, there isn't really much you can do. Like with any other encounter, you should try and get some stuns and headshots and try to at least get some additional points in that regard. But your main focus should honestly just be on protecting your ally and setting up a nice position where you can just pick off the enemies one by one without getting overwhelmed by all the amount of enemies that are trying to rush you and your ally. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of Mastering TLOU 2 Remastered's No Return Game Mode on Grounded difficulty. If there are any questions, please let me know in the comment section. If you have anything to add or if you have feedback on how I could do things better in the future, please also let me know in the comment section. Everything in that regard is really appreciated by me, and I can't thank you enough for all the support you've shown me in these last 2 months. My subscribers have gone up from 400 to 600, and it's one milestone that I'm reaching after one another, and I can't wait to reach the next ones with you guys together. So thank you guys for being here. Much love, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.